So I was really excited when Mitch asked me to talk to you, because right in the beginning of starting Portland Razor Company, I remember sitting down with my co-founder Alex, who's also in the crowd here, and we were thinking, we have no idea what the hell we're doing, starting a company, and we thought it'd be good to think about other companies that are maybe already doing similar things that we're trying to do, and Finex was actually one of the first companies that came up, and so we've always really drawn a lot of inspiration and really admire your company, so really excited to be here with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott. I think it's just a wonderful part of being about Portland. There is, Jordan talked about the spirit. In this audience, there's a lot of innovators and founders in the groups that we have, a lot of folks that have kinder spirit than Portland Razor Company and Finex, so it's great to be part of this event. It looks like Jordan got everybody excited. That's a problem with being the first following a great MC like her. So Scott and I are going to start in a chair, so we want to start away from the back. No.
Everyone say fireside chat.
So we're just going to jump into it. We're given half an hour, and I know in a brief conversation that you and I had, Scott, it took us half an hour just cover just saying hello, because you have so much to common. Yeah. So we're going to jump into it. Normally we want people to ask for companies and areas, but frankly, Scott, if you don't mind, I think most people know about Portland Razor Company and wonderful handcrafted products that you guys make. Mm-hmm. But before getting there, you're a fellow engineer, like me in the background. Mm-hmm. Take us from there to how did you end up with the Portland Razor?
What did they do asking two engineers to come up here and talk in front of people?
Exactly.
Right? But anyway, yeah, so I guess, like Ron said, I graduated from UCLA with a degree in mechanical engineering, and pretty quickly just realized that, I don't know, going into a regular engineering work environment wasn't for me. I tried it for a second, then immediately quit. And I started another company called Miyako Designs, and we made guitar amplifiers and did that for about 7 years. And then one day I had grown out a really big mustache. It looked really good. And it had come time to say bye to the mustache, and it had been a while since I shaved, so I went to pick up my electric razor, and of course the batteries were dead and they wouldn't charge, and so I had to put that down, and so then I went and I think picked up just whatever razor I had lying in the cabinet for however long it's been there, and it was of course rusty and dull, and then I was thinking to myself, this is pretty ridiculous, there's got to be another option rather than an electric razor that just runs out of battery one day, or this disposable, rusty, dirty cartridge razor. And so I started doing my research, and I eventually landed on straight razors, this technology that had gone out of fashion in the early 1900s. And I thought to myself, well, this may be the ultimate tool, and being an engineer and being into finding the right tool for the right job, I was like, this is it. And then I found myself really having to trying to find where I was going to get straight razors, because you can go and you can pick them up at antique stores and you can restore old ones, but I didn't quite have the knowledge on restoring old ones, and realized that there weren't really anyone in the United States making straight razors at the time. So I eventually really dove down and got into restoring vintage razors, and found that I really loved everything about the straight razor. I loved that you didn't have to throw it away at the end. I loved that it was a tool that I could maintain and take care of. And so then I was also a hobbyist knife maker at the time, making guitar amplifiers, also making knives on the side. And one day I was sitting there looking at my 2,000 square foot just inventory warehouse of all of my wood and giant cabinets and amplifiers. And then I looked at my little tiny knife making setup in the corner of my shop, and I thought, how nice would it be if I shipped something that was this big and made a tiny product that was this big, rather than shipping things that are 300 pounds. And so then that was really the beginning of thinking about straight razors, and I talked to my co-founder Alex, and we were like, what if we started this company just with this little tiny knife making setup? And at the time we were in Los Angeles, and we were like, what if we moved it to Portland? Because I don't know if you guys know, but Portland is actually the knife making capital of the United States. 25 of the largest knife making companies in the US are all right here in the Portland area.
25, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so then we picked up our stuff, we drove over to Portland, rented a little 10 by 10 square foot shop that had our grinder and our computer and cutting table and everything, and that's how we got it going.
Wow, congratulations. Well, you had very straightforward conclusion.
So. Yeah, and so Ron, I got to be honest, I did a little bit of internet research on you and your company before this talk, which means I stalked you on LinkedIn. And of course, saw your very impressive work history, a little intimidating. But yeah, you've been the Director of Engineering at Hewlett-Packard, Director of Engineering at Logitech, Vice President of Engineering at SawStop, the list goes on and on. What actually made you want to start a cast iron cookware company?
Actually, Scott, hearing your background, I'm so jealous. You quickly went from university straight to destination. It took me a long route to get to the same place as you are today. So obviously you're less smarter than I am. It takes me a long time to learn. So my background is actually I'm as Portland as it gets. I finished up high school in Corvallis, the Crescent Valley High School, for anybody that's, sorry Salem guys. And then I got all of my other degrees, BS, MS, and PhD in electrical engineering from Oregon State, so pretty far from cookware and where we ended up at. I worked for 7 years in research, basic research, learned 3 years of Finnish, spent time internationally, 13 years in Hewlett-Packard, and then continued in the different roles as CEOs and other areas, primarily in technology area. But at the same time, the reason I got my PhD was because I wanted to teach. I really enjoyed interaction. So I started teaching at Portland State University. I've been teaching there since 2010, engineering management class, which is master's and PhD. And for about 5 years ago, 2012, 2013, my business partner, Mike, reached out through LinkedIn at the time and said, hey, I have this crazy idea, Professor, do you want to take a look at it? And at the time, I looked at it. It's a sketch of interesting looking that attracted me. Cast iron, we start talking, 1,000-year-old technology. Cast iron goes before razors. So and we go, I would buy it, but I can't imagine anybody else would buy it. And the driver for me was that 2 boys at the time, that's younger, I still have 2 boys, but they were much younger at the time. And a lot of you can relate to it, and samples of the food. I was spending a lot of time, and my wife and I were spending a lot of money and time, organic vegetable, grass-fed beef, and put it in the containers, but frankly, we didn't know which part of Shenzhen, China it came from. Forget about what is in it and what is leaching out. We thought this is the definition of insanity. And Mike at the time and his wife were trying to have a baby, and they were trying to eat very healthy, so it's the same construct, and looking at aluminum, Teflon, and there was a space-age ceramics that are in fad now, and even the cast irons are produced in a high-volume manufacturing process. They don't use any traditional. So we actually searched. Our intent was not to start the company because there's a lot of headache. We just wanted to go off and get something that's healthy and as traditional and is all kind of made in the USA, so we know how is it made. We have actually fall back into we have to build it ourselves. We have to get the products internally. And we went on Kickstarter. And within 1 month, we had 1,600 backers, about 220,000 raised.
Wow.
And we figured that's more uncles and aunts that Mike and I have combined.
Yeah.
So there is maybe some interest there. And the rest is we started from a little factory, a small 4,000 square factory in on Northwest 21st per district, and we have been just blessed with kind of growing and really accessing a lot of friends, community support to get to this point that kind of we share now a Portland manufacturing operation.
Yeah. So your first run then, after you had a successful Kickstarter campaign, the first run you were actually doing the manufacturing yourself, or did you have a contract manufacturer at the time, or what was the money used that you raised for? Yeah.
Very good question, because as a lot of people, you have experience in Kickstarter, the question is, how do you build the first thing? Fortunately, Kickstarter is one of the great vehicles, not only for getting money to do some manufacturing, but also doing marketing, research. For us, we are the only cast iron that I know of that has actually parts. We have actually 5 parts, and all of them are sourced in the US. So it was a lot of working with partners, and we did the assembly, final manufacturing areas in a garage of one of our mutuals. So we literally started from garage in Sherwood, and we would actually literally go in there, manufacture stuff, put it in the back of a car, drive it to kitchen crew. And if some of you guys are familiar, they had big ovens. We put them, 5 of them in oven empty, and this is kitchen crew for people who don't know. Actually, is an area that used for cooking food. So we would put an empty skillet in there and take an empty skillet out, and everybody else look at us like you're craziest people we ever seen. So that, so that's kind of where we started and built it up. But you have an interesting one because you came up and you actually, that's the first thing you did, production. So what kind of challenges you face and what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess one of the things that I mentioned is nice. The company was great. It had a very low startup cost, so we didn't actually do any kind of funding or anything in the beginning. Actually, one of the things I did was I sold a car that I swore I was never going to sell, and I actually told my co-founder, "Don't ever let me sell this. If I ever want to sell this car, just slap me or something, right?" But it was a 1969 Camaro, and it was my pride and joy. But the idea for this company was so exciting that we were both like, "Sell it, get rid of it. We're going to Portland." Still regretting it. But it was a low startup cost. We just rented a 10 by 10 square foot space in ADX, which is a community workspace. I forget what your actual question was. But
yeah, so I don't know how you started manufacturing.
How we started manufacturing, it's just, the nice thing is that you only need a few tools to make stray razors. We just had a grinder and a little kiln. And basically manufacturing just started right here with my hands. So it was just, I was pretty good, I thought, at making razors when I started the company. Now I realize that I was really terrible at making razors. It's been about 5 years since we started. But yeah, it was like a one razor at a time type of thing. It was find one customer, make one razor, wait 3 weeks, rethink my entire decisions on starting this company, and then start the whole cycle over again. So manufacturing was very simple. There was no tricks to it. Very traditional manufacturing method. Maybe the only thing not totally traditional is we have some electricity and electric motors that make things slightly easier, but still just 100% handmade. And that's still exactly how we do it now. Our version of scaling is just I've created more me's who know how to make razors now. So pretty simple. So let's see. So your story about how you did your research and finally decided to land on cast iron as being the ultimate tool for the job. How have you been able to, and you did the Kickstarter, and obviously there was plenty of people who had already obviously been on that path of searching for something like that, and you captured them all in that Kickstarter. But since then, how have you been able to educate your customers and get them to either realize that cast iron is what they want, or to go down that same path that you did, and then eventually find your product and check it out?
Excellent question, Scott. It's kind of a little bit of humbling as a university professor. One of the classes I teach is actually strategic planning. And in that class, I spend a lot of time I'm in the middle of teaching that now. You follow A, B, you put a strategy together, you put a 2x2 matrix, and this is a go-to-market strategy, this is a branding strategy, and all through stuff. What Finex especially has been humbling is much simpler than that, at the same time much more complex, at least from our experience in Finex. What Jordan and Lisa said before about Oregon and being a feeling, it really resonated with me around what we are making. At Finex, we are not making a product. People are not buying the product because it's the shiniest spring or smoothest. There is that spirit of we are truly trying to pay attention to details. We are trying to make something that lasts forever, and we are trying to be honest about it. We have not been able to do a campaign around that story. We haven't been able to put it in one sentence to give it out, but somehow people are sensing in, and that has been kind of our true north and has been successful. It has been really simple for us to, for example, add a chrome to a spring to make it shiny on our skillets. But that wasn't true to our brand, because chrome is a chemical you don't want next to your food. It can scratch and dent over time, even though it looks pretty now. In 10 years, 15 years, it actually scratches and becomes ugly. And at the time, we had people that look at us and go, "You're nuts, it's $5 cheaper, just do the chrome." And that kind of the core spirit, the feeling that Lisa and Jordan was kind of ingrained and has going on, and has made us do some crazy stuff that people say is a Portland life. I'm not sure if you guys agree or not. Simple things like seasoning, we do organic flaxseed seasoning, but the way to normally do it is you put a oil on it and take it off with a cloth. The problem has been that at the end of every week, we would end up with a big bag of cloth that, what do you do with the oily cloth? You throw it in garbage. Anybody else would have been fine, but not people at Finex. We were just struggling with every week it was like giving your child away, doing stuff. And finally, of all people, our facility manager spent 3 months of his own time after hours experimenting with a whole bunch of different things. And then he got this idea of, if a cell phone falls in the water, you're supposed to put it in the rice and the rice extract. He came up with this idea, so we basically grab a bird seed and put the oily skillet into the bird seed, and the bird seed extracts the extra oil.
Wow.
So we don't have to use a cloth anymore. At the end of every week, we end up with a big bag of flaxseed oil-covered bird seed, and I take that to a chicken farmer next to my house, and he feeds it to the chicken. Being in Portland, the story doesn't end there. Yeah. He sells the eggs of those chicken for higher price because they're higher in omega-3 because it was fed flaxseed oil. Where else can you go to have a Portland stuff on that? Can I justify that based on a strategy that I teach in the school? Absolutely not. Can I justify it on the financial? No. My team still laughs at me because I'm not getting paid by delivering that seed to the thing. And after we actually pay for the eggs when I want to buy it for ourselves. So, and I'm not sure. Have you experienced that as you're putting Portland Razor, kind of that Portland aspect impacting your kind of manufacturing, your sales operation, things like that? How's that impacting your business?
I mean, kind of like what you're saying, we're both making products that are, the technology's been around forever to make the products that we make, so we have to do things that are a little bit different or a little bit special to make them stand out. I think our situation is slightly more simple in that we don't actually have a lot of competition. There's not a lot of people who want to make straight razors. So anytime we do anything that's even a little bit different, it's kind of makes big waves in the industry. So this seemed extremely simple, but we've started using steels that are stainless because all straight razor are actually just made traditionally from high carbon steels because they're easy to sharpen. But we did a bunch of research and found steels that actually are stainless and last longer and don't rust and do things like that. And one of the interesting things we've been able to do with searching for very specific materials is that we've actually been able to take the razors from home use, which is our main customer in the beginning, and take them into professional market, meaning like barber market and things like that. And so I would say our most Portland thing is that we're trying to push a lifestyle of non-disposable tools. We ourselves are using using cartridge razors that is filled with a bunch of plastic and hazardous waste that can't be recycled. Our product itself is the Portland part. It's that if you use this product, you're not going to be throwing anything away in the end. And we thought, why not have that just for home use, but also for professional use? Because I'm sure a lot of you have been to a barber shop or even a hair salon where they use razors or straight razors, or maybe you thought they were straight razors, but they're actually called chevettes. They look just like a straight razor, but they actually have this little disposable blade that slips in there. And so every single time that the barber shaves your face, or hairstylist uses it to texture your hair, they take that blade and they throw it away. And if you just think about how many barbers and hairstylists are cutting how many heads of hair every single day, I mean that's thousands and thousands of pounds of these little tiny razors that are being thrown away. So we thought, why not just limit that to the home use, but also get into the professional use. And luckily, in our research of finding more modern stainless steels and more modern technologies for the scales, the material that protects the blade, we've been able to find materials that can stand up to the health regulations that are required in the barbershops and in the hair salons, and they can actually be sanitized and seem pretty obvious to us, but we're actually the only straight razor company that makes a fully sanitizable straight razor.
Wow.
So that
seems like a pretty obvious one.
It seems pretty obvious. And the reason why barbershops stopped using them in the first place is, there's AIDS crisis, and in the 80s, everyone got worried about how are we spreading these diseases that we don't understand. A lot of states made the rule that I mean, it's a good thing that it happened, but maybe all of your tools in your barbershop and hair salon need to be sanitizable, which seems pretty obvious. So that's that blue jar of barbicide that you always see them putting the tools into. But up until now, nobody made a straight razor that could actually go into that jar and come out a straight razor. It goes in and then comes out a rusted piece of steel and a melted piece of scales, yeah. But yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, I think the most Portland thing that we're doing with our company is actually just the product itself and the lifestyle that we're selling with the product. Yeah.
It's definitely the core. Yeah. Just maybe switching flow, one of the challenges that we have had, and I think you have faced also, is being renewable is important, being handcrafted is important. At the same time, at the end of the day, the company has to survive and grow. Otherwise, is the craft, it's not a company.
Yeah.
What are some of the activities that Portland Razor has been put in place to allow you to grow? What has been successful and maybe what hasn't been successful?
Right. So I'd say when we started the company, so one of our main goals was to compete with the two factories in the world that actually still were making straight razors. So there's a factory in Germany and there's a factory in France, and we were thinking if they can be importing straight razors and hitting a price point of about $130, we should be able to manufacture a straight razor here in Portland and actually be able to compete. And that was true for about, I would say, 2 years, where we just forced ourselves to sell a straight razor at $130. And it was good. We got a lot of traction and people interested. I think we quickly realized, though, after around the 2-year mark, that if we ever wanted to scale and grow, we were going to have to convince other people that they wanted to do. It's not backbreaking labor, but it's very, very focused labor and very highly skilled labor. And I think we realized we weren't going to be able to just pay somebody minimum wage to do what we were doing, and we were working 12-hour days or longer. And so I think we realized that we were just, in order to grow, we were going to have to charge a little bit more money. So actually, as many companies face the same problem, worrying about starting your business at being the best value and the best price, we were kind of changing our complete model, and we were hoping that our quality and our reputation that we had that built up in the industry was going to help carry us, and we actually ended up changing our till now, 5 years later, our base price for our razor is $199. So actually a bit larger, but as many companies find, when we raised the price, it actually didn't hurt our business at all. And if anything, we noticed that we were getting more orders, we were getting happier customers, we were finding that the customers who were coming to us were actually more well-researched and educated on the product. So it actually it did us a lot of good to actually raise our prices. And now we feel like we're at a place that we can at least hold that price for a while. But yeah, how about you guys? Have you found anything about being a high quality, handmade, made for lifetime product?
No, I think that was definitely starting from a garage. We were a little bit naive in the beginning, trying to do everything ourselves. But at the same time, we were fortunate. Both of us, we were in our 40s and already had about 20 years of experience. So we had seen a little bit of ups and downs. So one thing we did early was do a back of envelope and saying, if we wanted to do everything from beginning to end at the volumes that we were hoping to do, we would have needed, I don't know, somewhere close to $35 million of stuff. We go, that's probably not a good strategy from day one, and say, hey, we are here, $35 million, we figured we couldn't collect that. So, but at the same time, the reason we started this was, if it's healthy for my family, it wasn't something that I want to only keep it to my family. We always knew that we want to get it out in the product, in the marketplace. And actually, one of the hopes that we had, or kind of a semi-hopes, was that we get in there and start a trend that we follow. We knew, we were hoping that cast iron comes back because we saw the value. We are not the smartest people in the United States by any means. We figured other people will also see it, just takes the time to do it. So we wanted to make sure we have enabled. So the strategy we used was finding out where is our core competency, where is our unique value propositions. And what we found out was that there is some unique stuff that we were bringing, like a smoothing and seasoning and traditional way of doing it. But pouring for example, pouring iron, we have had 1,000 founders in the United States that are going out of business. So we looked at it and go, wow, these guys are going out of business. why should we build another foundry here in Northwest Portland when there's foundries in the United States, in West Coast and other places, so, and the machine shops and other areas right here in Portland. So we started talking to them and created a network of suppliers for the parts that are standard, like stainless spring is something that we do in Newburgh. We could have done it internally, but we wouldn't not have added anything to do it the same as we would have done it. But the seasoning, the smoothing with we tumble for 1 hour every one of our products in a little rock, big tumblers, assembly of the product, quality control, those are the stuff that we had to do internally. So we started focusing around that and started working with the other people that were doing a standard. And it was a funny experience, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience here, and I'm sure you or other people might have faced it. But for example, the first phone calls I made to foundries, Vancouver, Washington, they basically hang up on me. I told them, I'm just calling you to get a quotation for making cast iron skillet. This is dimensions. And they said, no, thank you, not interested. Hang up. I'm going, wow, what? It was maybe my beautiful Persian accent, what was it? So call them back. And it turned out that they were expecting me to call them, and they had been trained that people call them, get a quotation, and they go to China.
Right.
So it took me like multiple phone calls, personal visits, that no, we are really, truly making, and we are going to be the best and the worst customer you're having, Foundry. The best in the sense that you have us, and the worst customers, I want to every pour that you make, I want a full chemical analysis of where the material came from, what material, what is the content of every single element. I want everything analyzed. I'm going to be in pain, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to grab your stuff and take it to China for a cheaper cost.
Yeah.
So that kind of established the manufacturing supply chain. But that's only half of the story. As an entrepreneur, we go back and forth on finding the bottleneck. That was a manufacturing, production, quality, and then becomes sales and marketing. Connecting to the customer becomes the issue. One thing that surprised me personally, even though our other members of the team wasn't so clear, we opened up a factory store. And that was kind of like last minute, kind of like, we have a factory, people are interested in getting into, let's open up a factory store. We opened that, and that has been just a wonderful thing for people coming in and seeing that story without me having to tell. But it actually has been a good sales point. I think one of the people here, Kim, I'm not sure she's around, she said that she got a tour as I walked in, said hello, and we had a customer that actually had visited the factory, and I never thought about that personal contact to be important. Now hindsight is like, of course, that's part of our brand, and stuff. Any experiences in Portland Razor?
Yeah, it's crazy when you realize that, because we also, when we started the company, we were doing mostly direct to consumer just through our website to try to hit as many people as possible. But then we realized a couple of years ago that there was just a ton of people like in Portland who had no idea what Portland Razor Company was, and it seems pretty obvious, but anytime you have a face-to-face interaction, people are always interested when you say straight razors, and they want to know more about it. And so, I think similar to you with your factory tours and the factory store, we've had a similar experience where we decided a couple years ago to build a barber shop in the front of our manufacturing space. So imagine, you walk in, there's 2 barber chairs there, there's a little bit of a retail space, and then if you go behind the curtains in either way, you're just basically standing in manufacturing space. And it ended up being great for a number of reasons. One, when you come to visit us, a lot of people, they come to expect, something nice because they're coming to buy a $200 razor or something like that, and before they were coming in and walking in and just seeing like a few dudes and sitting in with aprons and masks on, and they have like a baby under their arm and wife and kids and everybody, and it was a little bit awkward. So building the retail space and actually having a place where we could interact and talk to people face to face and show our product being used in the barbershop, show it being used. We also have sinks where Customers can even, we haven't gotten to the point, we haven't figured out how to put a razor into a customer's hand and actually teach them on their own face, just for reliability reasons. But Hunter and myself and Alex, we all do classes on how to shave, and Alex does an awesome leg shaving class. So if you thought the straight razor was just for shaving your face, you're wrong. The razor doesn't discriminate. It shaves any hair off of any skin, whatever you want. So we created this cool space to do demos and everything, and it's really paid off. We thought, if we make this space, if it could just pay for the square footage of rent that it occupies, then it'll be worth it. But then we found, when we made the barbershop in the retail space, it immediately quadrupled what our expectations were. And I think we're putting a lot more effort into that user experience actually just in our space now. We're putting a lot more effort into making a space that people can come, see how it's made, see the product in its finished form, and seeing it being used and everything. So it's been really cool.
That's pretty exciting. I hate to put you on the spot, Scott, but do we have a discount for build-up Oregon to show up at this?
Absolutely. It's the just come and talk to me discount. So after this, we'll work something out. But I guess same question for you then.
Actually, I never. You have a discount, and actually you can use my last name, 20 Khormaei 20. Wow. And you get 20% off. You can show up at the store, and that's the friends and family discount. But I should not have asked, but I think that's your friends and family. So
that's great.
Thank you.
Cool. So I guess I'll ask. We've heard a little bit about how Finex got started and everything. What's new on the horizon, or what are you guys working on right now?
Actually, it's kind of interesting. I never forget my mom's comment. I was complaining about my son when he was 1 or 2 years old, and I said, "Boy, he's a lot of work." And she gave me an advice that stuck in my memory, and that was, as your children grow bigger, the problems also become bigger. And that's what we're finding with Finex. It has been amazing success, but now we have a lot of ideas. We have a whole new product line that we want to get to market. We are now in about 750 stores in the US, which sounds a lot, but there's 10,000 stores, and we haven't even scratched the surface for international. So the things that we are trying to do right now is, the challenge that we are facing right now is how do we stay true to our brand and really be able to deliver so every single customer that buys a product feels like they were special, because from our perspective, that's extremely important. They are special. Right. And we still have a lifetime warranty for every single product. And we're proud ourselves to take care of our customers. As we go international, as we try to grow to multiple places, how do we maintain that? And every single product that we produce, how do we stand beyond that new line with that product? So those are kind of the challenges that we are facing, and also we are trying to make sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves. It was very humbling. The last couple of months ago, I was in New York City. We also at Museum of Modern Art, one of the only skillets that you can find in Museum of Modern Art because of our looks. It was very, I was Bloomingdale, Williams-Sonoma, very New York type thing. I came over, took my wife to Mediterranean Expedition restaurant. We were having a innocent dinner at the place. My wife gets up, goes to the restroom, and this was on the corner place that you can talk to your neighbor. My neighbors, they were eating their dinner, and we start talking, and he said, "Oh, he just bought a cast iron skillet." I go, "Wow, what a small world." I work for a local cast iron, and he goes, "We have a local cast iron skillet company?" I was like, we were walking distance to our factory. I go, "Okay, I just flew from New York City back to Portland. We were walking distance, and this person, pretty knowledgeable person, just but looking for cast iron, but I didn't even know about." So those are kind of challenges as we expand, making sure that we stay on true and don't forget our backyard. I'm not sure, where do you see your challenges?
I mean, right now, I feel like in the beginning of starting the company, after the selling one razor every 3 weeks part of the company, when it finally started growing, the sales were pretty easy because there were a bunch of people who were just like me who were looking for a better alternative to disposable razors. But I think about 3 years in, we found that we started to feel like sales weren't as rapidly increasing, and that we were hitting a little bit of a plateau on how quickly people were coming to that community of straight razor shaving. So really, I mean, the newest thing for us, I kind of mentioned before, is the barber shops. And it's actually really interesting. Before, our model was kind of let's build razors and sell it to anybody and everyone, any gender from ages 16 through 100. But barbers are really interesting because they're a very well-defined group, and we can actually, for the first time, do some market research on our actual customer and make a product specifically for them, and do focus groups, or have talk to barbers and get direct feedback from them. So really, I think our next moves is just to focus a lot on the professional market. And like I said, this is where a ton of waste is being created as well. So if we can actually get into the barber market and start changing barbers' minds on what tools can be used, then we feel like we can make a much bigger impact. But I think, are we getting close on time?
Yep.
I think we
are.
are.
That's what we're going to be getting signed,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're getting signed up. We're near the end of our time. There's a lot of good conversation. I really enjoyed our chat, Scott, and great opportunity to be here. I think my takeaway from conversation with you and everybody else is that it's really a passion type thing. I'm very much shared Finex outside, because I know both Scott and I, if we take our shirt off, you see tattoos of our brand names on our back. So this is saving you guys a tattoo, because that's what it takes.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.